And we are back for another breakdown here of the upcoming, uh, I guess you could say, snow event, snowstorm, whatever you want to call it. I don't care about the specifics. We got snow coming. Well, I do care about the specifics, but not like that. We have snow coming, so we are going to break that down in depth. You're going to get my thoughts. I don't really have any updated thoughts, to be honest, for tomorrow. I think it's pretty self explanatory, and I want to dive in right away, to be honest, to what's going to be happening next week. Guess we'll briefly discuss it because I guess it lays the foundation for the next storm. But yeah, we'll get started here in a minute as we wait for people to filter in, and I will open up chats. And Mega RHP, Bermani, how we doing? Wow, you guys getting here fast right away. It's impressive. Don't boost my ego like that. You make me think I'm an actual YouTuber. But yeah, again, if you don't know, we're gonna deep dive into the storm next week, and then probably towards the end, if you stick around, guys, we're probably gonna talk about next week a little bit as we get these OZ models cooking here. We'll get some of their freshest interpretations of what's going on. Not, um, but again, if you've been following all the last few nights, you'll know I've been watching something towards the end of next week and beginning second week at some point. So. Um, but yeah, mostly we'll be going over, some of the current observations I see for this current storm that we're tracking for next week. What the latest model guidance is kind of showing, my interpretations of that information, because remember, they're not the forecast. They are not the forecast. They are, they're just they're models. So you got to know how to take in that information. So yeah, so I'm gonna listen. I think there's a lot of mischief in terms of, we usually do have the track, but I do think there's a good amount of mischief on guidance right now on totals as well. I mean, granted, if you see the NAM produce like 3 feet of snow, that's always going to be it's going to be always be, interesting. But I think people need to stop looking at models a certain way and know that you can take little bits of it. um, do we ever care about like a NAM run, for example? No, we don't. But maybe there's some sort of truth to it. What do we know the NAM does well? Before we dive into the current storm, what do we know the NAM does well? East Coast amplification. It tends to do that relatively well. East Coast cyclogenesis, I should say. Bernie, you hear Bernie talk about that all the time. What is his biggest bias, though? Amplification of storms. So it's what you have to take in. So you have to use things with a bias. In the name will eventually get pushed out here soon. So it's not really that much of a viable model. Uh, to be honest, all you guys get my notifications. I appreciate that. Not even a snowflake in Ohio on the ground. Oh, I'm sorry, my man. I was hoping y'all could get something down there. Send up a finger to the sky for Dalton in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. And it's rather unfortunate. We've all been there before. We know we don't love it. But there's little bits and truths you can take from stuff. And I'll kind of explain because I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm looking at current observations, and they look pretty impressive. They look pretty. I've been looking at stuff, and it's not that well, I haven't been looking at it. It's just they continue to look really, really impressive considering the setup. We're not gonna see some we're not gonna see some massive 4 foot blizzard or something like that, but there is something to this, guys. There's something rather impressive. So let's show what's happening right now. And again, by the way, for Tuesday, I still really like my threat map, to be honest. I really do. Maybe Tuesday. All right, okay. I think Tuesday you'll get something. All the Midwest will should be able to get anywhere that didn't in the Midwest should have a pretty good shot to at least get something on Tuesday, and I'll explain why. And you can kind of see, because that Tuesday time frame you'll have that northern stream piece, and we'll talk about that. But so that's your snowstorm currently over the Midwest. Did some pretty impressive totals out there. Pretty looked like that 6 to 12 plus. Verified pretty well out there for a lot of people. But again, there wasn't a ton of upper level divergence, even though 500 millibar vort was pretty prolific, right? It's pretty good. It is an open. It's a positively tilted movement. No shortwave here, so it does you see amplify pretty well, but at that point it's kind of shunted off, and it's not going to have the same punch that it did in the Midwest initially. See that? But I will be watching here with tomorrow. I would keep an eye on is take note. Look at our low level jet here. Pretty decent low level jet here. Not okay. It's not a ridiculous storm, but look at the moisture flow here from the south. You notice this? I think there's a good opportunity for some overrunning snow, even to some places down here. Whether it's actually accumulating or not, that will be determined. But out ahead, where there will be some cold air, I was noticing this. I think we'll have some opportunity for wind off the ocean to help support some flakes in some of these places out here, out ahead of the system. I don't want to really draw New York City, but some of these places here, I would say probably not as much here, but maybe. I know it's messy. Keep an eye on that tomorrow. I want you guys to keep an eye on that. I want to see if I can make a little bit of a, just highlight it, not explicitly forecast it, and see if it comes to fruition. Because it is an overrunning setup, and then eventually here. Sorry, guys. We do all go rain here eventually. Sorry, but we do. So as we progress, I keep an eye somewhere, even into these areas here. Some it could be more grapple like in here. I would keep an eye. I would just keep an eye on it. But really, for the most part, most of the overrunning snow will tend to be, in these areas. So um, that's how this system's going to go. Nothing too impressive. Probably 1 to 3, some 3 to 6, and some of those higher elevations possible. Let me switch so I have YouTube and X at the same time. It's easier for me if I have it on the iPad, so then I can see the chat. Um, so yeah, we'll look at models beyond as well, Ethan, for sure. Because you guys know I've been looking at that. That's impressive. That's impressive. That wave out there in the Pacific. So yeah, so then this plays a part into the next system. So this sets the stage, guys. Let's break it down. What's going on here? Remember, let's break it down at face value. It's face value again. Let's break it down. What's going on? You have this system moving out here. This is our current storm we're tracking right now. That's moving through the Midwest. Here's your TPV lobe. Right here. This is your polar vortex disruption. We have cold, cold Arctic air, guys, in behind this that comes in. Cold. Notice it doesn't displace, though, all the way down here. Even though you get the CAD signature down the Appalachians, there'll be some ice concerns here, guys, along some of these places. So keep an eye on that. As we progress, though, notice extremely positively tilted orientation. But it's a large, right? It's a large wave. It's an amplified wave, though. Don't get it twisted, right? What we've been talking about. Look at the orientation. This is a large system. And take note. Let's pull up COD, matter of fact. This will probably kill us. So we'll exit out of here just for the moment. Let's take a look. I've been looking at observations. Satellite is a great tool to use, guys, for observations to keep an eye on. You got to really know what you're looking at, because sometimes you got to be careful, because sometimes you're actually just looking for something, and you got to just look at what stands out. So you got to be careful sometimes. If you have a certain forecast in your head, you can't just be looking for that. You got to actually just look what's being suggested objectively. Go 500. So here is the system we're watching. We're watching this guy for later next week, right? But this is take a look at this disruption here. So this plays a part. This helps this really amplify guy plays a part. But notice, right, we have the ridge over here in the Pacific, and you have your system in here. So that is the amplification we have currently right now. This is our system right here. The guy that he's coming on shore right now, guys. He's right there. So hopefully we'll get guidance to start getting a little bit better. But as we know, that's a tricky thing. Look at this already. She's already taken in moisture, guys. She's already. Look at the moisture feed on this system here along the tropics from our subtropical jet here. Look at the moisture feed. This is your subtropical jet, and it's potent. It is potent, the subtropical jet here. This is what's really going to help enhance the system to, I think, allow some explosive amplification. But notice, it will be delayed because, again, look at how positively tilted this system is coming in. You have this system here. You have your polar vortex disruption as well in and out ahead of this system, and in behind the previous system. Look at the gateway for this system to go here. You can see it following its track. This is where it's going to go here. It's going to lead in right behind the system where it was coming. But notice again, very positively tilted at this point, this system. And will continue to be so. So we have a large positively tilted system. There's a lot of research to go along with these kind of setups too as well, that these large amplified positively tilted systems tend to take their time, but when they do, they tend to take off. And you can go look at, I tweeted some of those references, related to that earlier today, which will not gain as much traction as a model post, but will probably be way more valuable than any of that stuff. So again, you want to know, I just what I do when I'm not streaming and stuff. I obviously have my regular life, but I also, when I'm doing this stuff, I'm deep diving, guys. I'm really just obsessed with trying to figure out all these puzzle pieces, what they mean, what's the end results. That's it. That's strictly it. I love snow. I want to see how we can get snow always, but that's not what drives my. That's not what drives me to figure out the end result. Strictly trying to be the best I can at this. So let's look at this. Let's look at what we have here. Large, very amplified, positively tilted here kink in our Pacific jet. There's late next week's system, or early the next week, whenever that comes in. Here's your subtropical jet along here. This is going to help feed the system. And you can already see the train tracks being set here. This is where it's going to follow. Right here. This is right here. Right along this boundary. And expect a surface load track probably somewhere out just near the subtropical jet. An eventual surface load track. A lot of what you're seeing on guidance right now is you're seeing models trying to over amplify the northern edge of this extent, and so it initially pushes the rain snow line a little bit further initially, because I'll show you the GFS. I don't agree with its output. I don't agree with its output, because if you look at 700 millibars, it's actually pretty dang close to the Euro AI and some of those Euro runs we've seen as well. Euro's slightly more offshore. The GFS is really not as far away from the rest of guidance as you would think. But people just keep looking at those P-type maps and the snowfall maps, and that's what gets them into trouble. Because models are always playing from behind, and a global model resolution is going to be terrible for this stuff. Terrible. But get caught looking at it, because they're fun to look at. This is great, man. Thanks. You're welcome. So again, but notice large, positively tilted system that is certainly very amplified with the enhancement of the subtropical jet here. So we're not just relying on this system here. That's the key. This is what helps enhance the southern stream of our system here. And this is what I think allows eventual surface track here and up the coast and off the coast. And not the northern low, the northern stream of our system taking off and shooting a low pressure system over New England. Right now, based on current observations, supports a low pressure off track, just based on my opinion. That's it. I'm not the end all be all. I'm not perfect at this. So what I see and how I see it is not always going to be perfectly on point. So I'll just take that with a grain of salt. But just know, I'm working really hard to do the best I can at this stuff always. And again, I'm just trying to put puzzle pieces together, guys. That's all I'm trying to do. Whatever path I can find out to be the best at this I can, that's what I'm going to do. Because ultimately, what gets you guys to tune in is me being at least somewhat accurate. If I was never accurate at this, none of you would be tuning in. So that's my job, is to see how well I can describe things, how accurate I can do it. And I try to take pride on that. A lot of people, there's a fair amount of people that don't like how I do my process. I really can't control that. Just try to do what I can. But again, let's draw it out. There's next week. There's your large system here. Subtropical jet here. This is the key. And here's the key over the next couple of weeks too. Look at our subtropical jet. This thing ain't going away, guys. Subtropical jet is a key piece to potentially get some pretty impressive snowstorms that you can get. Look at the polar vortex disruption. It's going to keep throwing cold air over the central and eastern U.S. for at least the next couple weeks, likely. You have this embedded Rossby wave train here of systems that's going to continue to dump itself over the west coast, right? That's our pattern. The pattern is now being put in stone, guys. That's not like, oh my God, what's going to happen? The pattern is being set here. So the things are being set into stone. Now, well, I mean, coastal sections have never really been in play, in my opinion, for the most significant snowfall, LI weather. They never really have been. I've never really, anybody that's been following me from the beginning of the storm has known that I haven't really been as keen on coastal areas. I know there's some speculation and there's some hope for people, but I've never really, even in my threat map, you can see, it's just never been, and it's never been in my forecast for this storm. Now, some places close to the coast, I think, could end up making out pretty decent to keep an eye. High show speed. You are from Ohio, right? I was hoping you would get some. I'm not. I don't think it worked out too well, unfortunately. I think we said what. I think you had a decent chance to get 1 to 3. I'm not sure that. I'm not sure that panned out. So again, it was a few days out. I told you, I'm not an Ohio. I'm not an Ohio expert. So I tried for you, and there in the Dayton area. I like green. But yeah, here are your pieces here. So if we didn't have the ocean temperatures we did, I would really like a lot more coastal sections in New England. Not as much here. Not as much. Uh, New York City and places like that. Long Island. Long Island. This was never really your setup. Um, Unfortunately. But some of these coastal places here along eastern New England, I would like a little bit more if those ocean temperatures weren't as warm as they are, and they are currently below average to usual. So we'll see if that continues to hold here as we enter January. That wouldn't be a bad thing, especially for some of these setups like we have here. So things looking, I'm telling you, I think things look pretty solid here. Again, maybe it depends on what your expectations were. I'm not forecasting a 3 to 4 foot blizzard here. Um, I mean, I'm a million miles away because I'm showing the current. I mean, I'm gonna talk about these other places closer. Don't worry. But like, I mean, right now I'm showing current ops, so I can't show the whole picture right now and be zoomed in. So don't worry. I know it's a million miles away. We'll talk about these areas. This will not be the only time I talk about these areas. Don't worry. But I also did say coastal eastern New England, so I made sure to say that pretty clearly. Um, so yeah, we're not. This is not. We're not even remotely, done here yet. So yeah, things are again. I'm not forecasting a 4 foot blizzard, but so sorry for that. Not every storm. I feel like there's something where if it's not the biggest storm in the world, it's like people do not. People are fiending badly for this. Massive, huge snowstorm here, and it's just you just got to take what you can get here. You gotta have more than just the massive snowstorms to build up a seasonal. So it's all relative, I guess, to perspective. But what oh, let's pull up my threat map. We can go over that and we'll discuss what's going on with some of the guidance you're seeing. My thoughts. If you disagree, you disagree. I can't really do anything. These are my thoughts. This is how I'm interpreting, how I'm forecasting it. Again, I try to do the best I can with the information available, but I'm not perfect. But best I can do is try to let you know what's going on. So let's find the threat map here. Somewhere in here, and we'll discuss the ensembles too and stuff like that. So stay tuned here. We're just getting cooking here. Here's my threat map. I still like it. I still really, really like it, actually, based on today. Again, this doesn't mean this whole freaking area is going to see 6+ inches of snow. I told you guys this would be refined. I'm just saying, I think somewhere within this area, we're gonna have the potential for 6+ inches for some sort of swath. And I really, again, if you heard me, 4 to 6 is what I really wanted to do. But I didn't want it to be interpreted as if this was only going to be a 4 to 6 inch storm, because I think there's the potential for some higher totals in some locally higher swaths, especially in New England. But right now, somewhere within this area, I'm pretty confident within. Somewhere within this area, I think there's going to be a broad area of 3 to 6, 48 inches of snow. I'm fairly confident in that. Within that, I think there could be some swaths potentially, 6 to 10, 6 to 12+ inches of snow. I really do think that, just based on the current setup. People can disagree, they can do whatever they want. And again, I really think New England, whoever's on the other side of that rain snow line, that's kind of where we're looking at for the potential here. And we'll go into discuss. I mean, we already did. I showed you why. But right now it favors delayed amplification, but once it does, it will be pretty impressive, in my opinion, relative to the setup. And that's why you see some of the NAM stuff is picking up on that. It shows that there's going to be a decent point here potentially for amplification. Is it way overdoing it? Of course it is. Of course it is, because that's the NAM. It's also latching onto that northern branch forward that we talked about. And again, if we didn't have such warm winds off the ocean, and then eventually those winds shift to the north-northeast and from the north. So eventually some of these coastal places will be able to get into it here, but that will be more towards, maybe, if you're lucky, the very beginning, but even probably not. Probably have to wait until the end for some of these coastal places, just based on how things are progressing here. Coastal front is a concern. If this were January, I'd probably be forecasting this a little bit further down east. Same with this line maybe too, but this is what I got for now, and that's the same reason too, is because I think on the backside, some of even these coastal places down into here can be able to get potentially some snow on the very back edge of this, maybe. And again, it says measurable accumulating snow potential. I don't think all the way down into here we're talking about 3 to 5 inches of snow like the North Boroughs. I'm not saying that. Face value for what it is, measurable to accumulating snow. Just send the tweet out here on top of the original one. Okay. So yeah, I still really like the general idea. Where am I located? I'm located in Worcester County, so I'm probably gonna get something regardless out of the system. I'm right by Worcester, so I'm kind of right in this area here. So it really, for me, um, sometimes, sometimes I get questions, uh, are you just forecast for you to get snow? And it's like, nah, I really just want to see how this plays out and try to see how accurately I can do this stuff. Because I'm not perfect, and so I try to see how much better I can get every system at doing this, and to the best of my ability, at least. But that is where I live personally. Um, I don't think I have the highest margin for error, but I think I have a good shot, to be able to get some pretty good snow out of this. It just happens to be that way. That could also be I could also be just southeast, maybe, of where the goods are. Waltham? No, I'm not in Waltham. I'm by Worcester. Oh, you're saying what about Waltham? That's a tough one right there. I'm not loving I'm not loving Waltham, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. Um, you see, it's feathered, but this was about where I drew that line here, and I would stay. I would still be pretty adamant on that. It could be a really close call on Waltham, though. I'm telling, and I'm not just. I know people say that every storm, but legitimately, guys, could be one of those storms where, in Eastern Mass, especially, where someone right here gets 1 to 2 inches of snow, maybe on the backside, and someone right here gets like 8 to 10 inches of snow. It could really be one of those events. It could very much be one of those. It could be a 15, 20 mile difference between seeing 1 to 2 inches and like 8 to 10. It would not shock me. Like that's the kind of storm we're talking about here, or like an inch to 2 or 6 inches of snow. Like that is the kind of difference we could be talking about here in a very short time frame, or in a very short span of distance. Sorry, it is not a long duration event either. But that's the thing, we talked about it. This does not need to be. All it takes is simple math, guys. Simple math. It's not like the storm's coming in 3 hours. Right? These quick ones, for timing specifically. Let's play it out. We'll use whatever. Here we go. Just an example. Let's see. 12Z Tuesday start. We'll pick, let's say it's like Springfield. 18Z OZ. And it's out about, 15 hours maybe, right? 12 to 15 hours. But it's a quick hitter. It packs a punch in that time frame. It is not it's not a system that just, it's a very weak, flat, progressive wave. I don't see that right now, and I don't think it supports that. I don't think current observations support that. And there's some people that forecast it, and also some people are also more forecasting as, just the, general area. And that's, I think that I'd actually, let me rephrase. It's some people just forecast in this time frame to be a little bit conservative as a general idea, as I could say. And that's exactly what I'm doing too. At least I like to think so. Maybe it didn't sound like it, but that's just how I'm confident in. I'm trying to forecast the best I can, and that's what I see right now, based on that. So, if you have like if you have a 12 to 16 hour system, and let's say first couple hours and last few hours are light snow, so that means you're in an let's say a 10 to 12 hour period, 8 to 12 hour period of moderate to heavy snow. Let's say you average 3/4 of an inch per hour, given as an average for about 8 hours. That's 6 inches of snow right there. You do the math. Let's say you average 1/4 inch per hour for the next 6 hours. What was that? What was that? 1.5? Am I doing that math right? I think so. 7.5 inches of snow right there. And there you go. You got a decent snowstorm, just like that. And that's not accounting for that jackpot area that will probably get more. And that's it. There's your math. For me, I look at it as a math game when it comes to some of that stuff. Because it evens out, the times you're in subsidence, the time you get the heavy bands, that hour where you end up with 1.5 inches of snow, and then that hour you end up with subsidence with like 0.4 inches of snow, and that's just how it goes. So sure, is it a quick moving system? Yeah. But these don't have to be, guys, these don't have to be 24-hour systems to go get a bunch of snow. They don't. This will be a quick puncher, and look at the upper level jet, guys. This is a pretty solid upper level jet here. Pretty solid upper level jet here for a southwest flow event. And this amplification in the jet here is what slows it down at the right time. Slows it down enough for these dynamics to consolidate. And you see that. I want to show you the GFS, and I'll show you what I mean by what I said earlier. GFS, does it look that different from the Euro AI? Not really. Doesn't look all that different. I'll show you 250 here too. The difference is it keeps consolidating the northern board. You see this? You're gonna get your surface low to pop here off this SDJ, subtropical jet, like we talked about. And this is eventually what's gonna be the dominant guy. This is the dominant guy. But it keeps holding on here to the northern edge. So it pushes, it throws a warm surge further north, and it sets up the boundary further north as well. Forces that rain snow line to go a little bit further northwest. And I think this is a model error we're seeing. But then look at 700 Vort. You see 700? Where's the juice? Guys, the juice is here. This is where the juice is, and it's going to be a more mid-level driven system. Notice what happens at 700. If you didn't know any else of the context, and you just saw this 700 signature, there's no way you would believe this guy is inland. There's no way. But initially, that boundary gets pushed further north, and it pulls it in. And that 700 signature, it has basically the low pressure over the 700 signature here. And we're not completely stacking at this point either. And also, the rain snow line will be blotchy and terrible anyways. That's how it works. Any frontogenesis? Yes, there will be frontogenesis with this. Could be pretty notable. So that's why when you see these P-type maps, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. Hopefully you're getting the snow. Hopefully we all get the snow. I feel like I'm going to be super interesting where I could see myself getting all snow or all rain. Don't really. You're in an interesting spot. You're in a really interesting spot here. I want to say you're going to do well, Kevin. I want to say you're going to get front end thumb. I'm fairly confident in that, but it's hard to say beyond that. Any baggage genesis? Pause. For yourself, Twisted. My friend lives in Weston. You think you have a good shot being just enough on the west side, coastal front to get a huge dump? Man, it's a really tough call. Really tough call right now. You could be close. It could end up just being a slushy white rain, and maybe you get a couple inches, maybe in that spot in Weston. I don't really love fork, and you notice my wording. I mean, I stutter anyways, always have, but the way I stutter talking about Eastern Mass right now, guys, I am really, it's one of those things, and I'm telling you, it's just going to be a nowcast with Eastern Mass. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Eastern Mass will be a nowcast. We won't, unless like we get a drastic change here coming up. That's I look at observations and I go, oh, this supports a pretty far interior solution, which I don't see anything to support that right now, or not anything. I don't see nearly enough whatsoever to merit that being the most likely scenario. Until we would see that, it's going to be a nowcast. This whole area here, nowcast. And you know what I just drew? I just drew the whole 95 corridor, where there's got to be several million people who live in that corridor right there. So, sucks, but it's true. The immediate coastline, I don't like at all, regardless. The immediate coastline, I don't like at all. Just inland off the coastline, I don't know. I really don't know. It's going to be a tough call. And I know you hear that a lot, but you notice the confidence I'm talking about with other areas here, guys. This is going to be a toss-up. Elevation will play a role for ratios. It will not play a role for whether or not you see snow. So, for example, the valley here my map will not draw out the, maybe for a local jackpot, because I will factor in ratios for some of these places here. Like some of these places just have more terrain and ratios, even down into the Worcester Hills here too. They just do. You know, that once you start getting 800 to 1,000 feet in elevation, you'll start noticing, a difference. But even between like 600 feet elevation, where I'm close to about, versus 300 feet elevation, that plays a huge role as well. What do you think the highest upside totals will be around Worcester? I don't know if people want me to say that. I don't know if people want me to say that. I have an idea, but I'll just say over double digits. Like healthily, is that a word? Healthily? We'll make it healthily over double digits. I don't think like 2 feet or anything like that. We're not talking about that, but there is a legitimately high upside ceiling to this system that I've tried to make clear, but I really don't want to go into it too much, because I feel like whenever I do, people just take that away and they try to discredit everything else that I'm saying. Here in Grafton, that's about 500. Well, where I live specifically in Grafton, it's about 560, 575 feet of elevation. So it's just under 600 feet of elevation. And I literally live right where I live is right next to about 650 feet of elevation. So I live in one of the higher parts of elevation of the town. Some parts of Grafton go down to 250, 300 feet elevation. So yeah, so I do know, my elevation relatively. I mean, I have lived here my whole life, so I do have some idea. Waltham is so close, yeah, indeed. Could this be one of those systems, a classic heavy band way west randomly in Vermont? Yes, it could be. And like I said, it would be a secondary band, and probably be some orographic influence. Way out here, one of those guys. I think the GFS, though, it highlights a good. Is that high enough in usually in your area X? It usually is. I live in a spot where some systems you notice it. You very much notice it. It plays a difference. I've seen it before. I've literally seen it. Like I'm driving, and I'm going down the hill, and I'm driving up, and I'm seeing the rain, and then as I get to the top of the hill, I notice, again, not at my road but near it. I notice, oh, now we're switching to snow, and you can see it in some of those events, and it very much makes a difference. And then there's others where you just got to be like, you got to be 700-800 feet plus elevation. And it tends to be very close by some of those areas. So sometimes I see it make a difference, other times not as much. This system, maybe for ratios, you'll notice it a little bit. But for this system, I'm not going to be drawing out. I'm not going to be drawing some big, the big dome over Springfield and Hartford, as opposed to that, so to say. This will be more of a linear rain snow line, if it is. NWS going with a ceiling of 6 to 8 inches in the Poconos. I think it could be a little bit higher in the Poconos, especially. Gotcha. Thanks for explaining. No, thanks for asking. This is interesting. Elevation is always an interesting subject to discuss, in my opinion. Very, very intriguing. So yeah, so like my town, it literally ranges from about 250 to about 650, 680 maybe feet elevation. It's Pigeon Hill is the highest elevation in Grafton, which maybe 650, 660, 680, I don't know. But then those Worcester Hills, you notice it. Like so especially some of those college campuses, like Holy Cross, for example. Man, huge difference that elevation plays. Huge difference. I'm hoping for Hudson Valley as well, and Westchester and myself. You know, Westchester, I think I think you can, I think you'll make out here. I think you'll make out. But again, I do think Poconos. I think the ceiling is a little bit higher than that. That's just my opinion, though. But again, the highest favored area here in the system, the highest ceiling. Sorry, not highest. Well, highest favored ceiling here is New England. It absolutely is, in my opinion. And you notice that because of when take a look at the upper level jet here. You see when it takes off, that greatest area, and right in that pocket. Right in the pocket, that right entrance region of the jet is where your greatest lift will always be. And you'll see that favors New England. So that's why the NAM kind of blows up. We'll show the NAM. Why not? Does it have that much merit? No, in the specifics. But take a look here. But you see how early it develops this northern part here? So it allows the jet to relax and sit back early. And so that's why that right entrance region so early on gets back here. So the boundary comes further northwest, and that forces all of your greatest dynamics at the same time. And this specific run to actually consolidate, because it's so explosive, the amplification here, that the dynamics do consolidate. Yep, right. Yeah. And so those dynamics do consolidate. So eventually, this whole area here, you'll see explosive development on this run. Explosive. Right under that jet streak there is where you notice it. Take a peek. Play it about 2 frames later, and you'll see it. And that's why you see what you see. See how amplified it is with because initially, guys, remember we're talking about your moisture feed coming off here, subtropical jet. This is where your surface low is going to pop. And this is what's going to be the dominant guy eventually. This is not a real true 500 millibar what do I want to say? Driven system. So in the NAM, it's gorgeous, man. It's gorgeous. You get that double jet streak feature that we're talking about. That's something I'll be watching as we get closer. Help support, the slowdown and the consolidation of the dynamics. So man, it's impressive. It's really, really impressive from a meteorological perspective. But you'll see here, notice, look, those 700 dynamics are already trying to consolidate way out here. This is where it's trying to set up. And so on this specific run, that's what it does. And as you can see, you get this massive deformation band to set up. So on the backside, you do see snow. Pretty cool from a model perspective to kind of watch. But it's not really a most likely scenario. That's like your most interior scenario right there, and possible. Waltham so close. Yep, it is. Doesn't look positive. Snowy and Rowley, Mass. Slushy mix. I'm bummed. It's rough. I wouldn't say. I guess yeah. I wouldn't say it looks positive, but I wouldn't say it necessarily looks extremely negative either. I would just stay in the middle right now, Sarah. Stay in the middle and see what happens. I would have no expectations. Like, not low expectations, not high. I would have no expectations and see kind of how it. This is a nowcast. I'm telling anybody that tells you otherwise along and just inland along eastern Mass is at least slightly lying. Unless the system were to be so far southeast, and even then, you're going to have the east wind off the ocean. So, yes, it's a nowcast situation for eastern Mass, which sucks because there's going to be a ton of questions along the coast. I just know there is, and you're just going to have to be patient. How do I feel about the UCMET? You ever watch a show that has a really good Rotten Tomatoes to view, but when you watch it, every show you have no idea what's happening from the next to the next? That's what I think of the UCMET. I think the UCMET scores well, but does the craziest wild swings it's like a soap opera. Does the craziest wild swings, and it's hard to pinpoint. Icon GFS of the storm for the 6. Thank you for always responding. They say Tuesday night and Wednesday. Hate when we sleep through the fun. I never sleep through the fun. I'm always up. Snow dictates and determines my schedule. Which is why I have not gotten more than 7 hours of sleep any nights. Which for you, some of you would be like, oh man, I can't wait. But for me, I need it. I need the sleep. But some nights, you guys know, during some of those hurricane trackings, man, I don't sleep. I don't sleep at all. There would be about sometimes it'd be like 3 days, and I get about 12 hours total, maybe less. I think Aaron was about 9 hours in like 3 days, which is not good. Do you think areas at 1,500 feet north of the Catskills will get some good snow? Oh yeah, Catskills are in a great spot for this one. Probably you'll probably get some tomorrow, to be honest, and you're gonna get you're in a pretty good spot for Tuesday, I think, as well. My local NWS drew me in the oval uncertainty. Welcome to the club. It's like that around where I am too. The hill I go often, where sometimes has no snow and the top has 2 to 3 inches. Always fascinating. Of course. Actually, I have a question. What storms are super elevation dependent, and why is this not one? Actually, I will say this is an elevation dependent for eastern Mass. Absolutely is. Because the higher up you are in the column, like, look at it. Let's look at it like here. Why is it elevation dependent? I really hope Tidbits does not crash my screen again. We'll give it a shot. Do not crash it. Let's take an example. So elevation does play a factor. Elevation is basically where you are. Are you here, 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 or here? Elevation plays the biggest factor when your warm tongue is from the surface and the lower levels. So if your warm tongue is around here, then where you live, elevation from surface to 925, especially surface to 850 millibars, then your elevation is going to play a huge freaking factor. You're going to want to be higher up. So if you're higher up, you have a better chance of this red line not going over the 0 degree line, because it won't have a chance to, because you're a higher elevation. But let's say you're 1,500 feet and you're higher up elevation. Pretty sure my dog just ripped one right next to me. It's fantastic. Tried to get him to take a deuce before we started this. He would not. So hopefully he doesn't do one while I'm doing it. If you hear me yell during this, you'll know why. It would be that. And if you're, let's say, you're 200 feet elevation, then you're a lower elevation. You have a chance to potentially let this line go across. And here's where elevation doesn't play a factor as much. When we start talking about sleet more often, because your warm tongue is then going to be oftentimes more at the mid levels, probably usually from around 850, which is technically still more in the lower levels, to around 700. Oh, it smells too. He did. Come on, Tatum. Come on. It's awful. Right next to me. You're pointing it right at me too. I'll blow it back that way. And so this is going to be where you watch for sleet. So unless you're a, a 5 to 10,000 feet elevation, it's not going to be as much of a factor here. When you have a warm tongue up this high in the atmosphere. Notice, let's see if I can pinpoint Mount Washington. Nope, missed it. Okay, it's freaking out. The screen's freaking out. This is not good. No, we gotta get out. Give me a second. Me. You guys still hear me? Just checking. Yeah, I don't know what it is about tropical tidbits right now, guys. This just keeps happening. It keeps crashing my computer. Levi, you're out there, man. Come on. We got to fix that. How does Philly North and West with the latest model runs tonight? Honestly, the latest model runs are not. Thanks. The latest model runs are not really affecting my thoughts. I think northwest of Philly, um, I like much better. Um, to the southeast, twisted or Twitter fingers. That's enough. Um, and then near Philly and southeast, not your system, not your system. I really am gonna have to dive in. I'm gonna have to dive more though into PA and Northern Maryland, PA, North Jersey. I'm gonna have to dive more because I've been really more focusing this on from a Northeast PA, New York, New England. Um, More of that standpoint because that's where I think the higher ceiling is with this system. And I'm gonna need to look a little bit more closer at the rain snow line for that some of that stuff. So I'm not gonna lie there. Any other system even more snow possibly after this one for coastal mass? I did see a plow earlier said earlier getting ready for this one. That was fun to see. Yes, there'll be more opportunities to see after this one. I don't know if you talked about it earlier, but why is the Euro and AI further south than any other model? What could we get in Foxborough, Galats? Welcome back, first of all. Um, not looking unbelievable for Foxborough, but it could be a very close call. Very, very close call if we were to see a slightly more southeastern solution with the track, which is in play. It's very much in play here. Um, it could end up being a very close call with that wind off the ocean. I was told I need to check beyond this GFS run, and I see why. There's going to be something there. Later next week, there could be some mid-Atlantic snow with this. I wonder to pick up on it. There could be something, but just not enough pocket for lift eventually. But it could set the stage here. Could set the stage for after. That's kind of what you see. Does anything come of that? It does. There is a little bit. So this is how you get your coastal areas involved. There could be several systems, I guess, in theory this week. We'll see how it resolves it. This is just one model run, so don't take this, guys. Don't take this as the. But this run, yeah, this run pops off. This run really pops off. Really, I mean that looks a lot like a major snowstorm. Look at 500 volt, and that's a major snowstorm for somebody. What was that, next Monday? Yeah, that's a major snowstorm. So, multiple systems to watch after this. Potentially. Could be just one. But there will be more systems after this to watch. So, and that'd be a pretty impressive system there. But notice, keep getting kinks in the line here. Subtropical jet will remain fairly active. Notice at the bottom of your screen here. And this is what's going to help enhance systems. You notice that right here on this system, what helps enhance it? Subtropical jet. Look at that amplification that takes place as a result. And that's basically it. That's what fuels. Look, that's what fuels our system here. Subtropical jet. That's the key right now. MGO moving into phases 7 and 8 here. Subtropical jet turns on. So you get something. If you can get enough layback here, and you can allow enough ascent within here, because this is a really strong jet streak, guys. This is really strong for late next week. You can look at it. It doesn't. That's not just the GFS either. This is all. It's all on all guidance. To me, this doesn't look as much. This looks like it had. This doesn't look much interior like. I will say. Just looking at. I'm gonna have to look more observations though. Just if we were going off the models, let's say. Just the idea of it. This doesn't look like interior. This looks like more of these areas. And maybe even further south, initially. So it's a pretty strong upper level jet streak here. That's going to be driving this. Like we eventually do get it, and you notice there's some late explosiveness, but it's going to be pretty juiced up. See, the Euro AI has that system the GFS did too, just a little bit further southeast. Is Saturday, Sunday, not Monday. It is Saturday, Sunday, not Monday. GFS. No, I'm telling you, I know what you mean. I looked at that, but I'm telling you that what I'm telling you, this would do more than this, even though the jet streak is stronger on that. I do see what it did, though. But it really depends on how much TPV presses. And kind of relax a little bit more, allow this to lift, literally and figuratively. That would create potentially a little bit more explosiveness, but it may not be the case. I mean, not every system can also be a massive snowstorm. It just can't be. That's not how it works. As much as I wish it would. Now with that would create a big time snowstorm. We're looking at verbatim. I don't know who I want snow for, myself or Mitch West. Always yourself. Always want snow for yourself first. 50 degree. They get 50 degree. I'm trying to say it. Roll my R's. Espanol. Degree. So close. I can roll my R's, but not on that one. ¿Por qué yo hablo español un poco? Poquito. No más, though. En inglés, no. Ahora, I should say. En inglés, ahora. I see a lot of people saying if the Euro AI is accurate in its predictions, then it will be the model for the winter. Euro AI is, to me, it already is the supreme model. That doesn't mean it doesn't have biases. You guys saw that, how flat it was and suppressed along the boundary. That is something it does. And I think that's something some of the, and part of that is probably due to the resolution it is. I think once we see that Euro AI get that higher resolution, I think it will have some more wild swings. It will be a little bit less consistent at times, but ultimately it will depict some of that. Like it won't do what it did in this setup, where it was so flat. I think this December early snow. I think this was earlier snow in early December than I remember. Record and early. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't even know exactly what you mean by that, Sarah. Sorry. I just want to know if we get any snow on the ground and if my golf season is over. Probably not to the further southeast. You got any good golf courses to the southeast of you? Not quite yet. But yeah, there's not going to be too many 50-degree days, guys, over the next few weeks here, at least. But I don't think for the winter. No, it's not. There will be 50-degree days. And if I'm wrong, I'll happily be wrong about that because that means some things went really well this winter. We can take a look at the ensembles. Let's see. You smell what the GEFS is cooking. That is too far. Forget how close we are to the system now. It's a little bit more juicier. In a good way. What you tend to want to see, though, is you want that late explosive development. Is you don't want this to just be a single jet streak here. What you want to see let me simplify this best I can. You just want to kind of see it break off. And so that it kind of does like a C curvature. Get that curvature in the jet. And so it looks something like that, like a snake almost. But you also don't want it too farther west, like the NAM, for example. Otherwise, it allows that pocket to get in too much. And then if you don't get it enough, then it's a much flatter system and weaker. And now we're talking about at a max, like 3 to 6 inches at a max. So that's what I mean, guys, when I said we might maximize what we could do with this system in terms of the corridor where we live. Just given what we're doing with what we have, the pieces on the table. See any of these panels loaded out yet? They definitely look better than earlier this morning, for whatever that means. Let's see. Let's go to the percentiles. It's too complicated. Let me view here first, and then percentiles. So this is going to be like, no, don't do that. If you do care, starting to look closer to the other stuff. A little bit juicier here, right? This run too, but also not pushing further northwest. So if you do care about that, let's look at the percentiles. Floor, mini floor, average, 75, higher end. Notice the higher end scenario was more here. So that's what you get from the GEFS suite. But again, I don't really care too much about the specifics of these, so I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't focus on too much. Again, I'm using mostly current observations to hide, and I've mainly done that for most of the system. Basically, looking at current observations, trying to link it back to past research. You know, some of the a lot of AMS journals been going through and stuff. You know, obviously get them summarized. I can't read like those 20 pages, so I got to get them summarized for me. But you know, amazing the advancements in technology with AI we can kind of use for that stuff now to help summarize some of the reading that we can do. But yeah, it's just basically what I've been doing is just constantly looking at observations, seeing how things are trending. Is it continuing to align with my thoughts, and just continue to progress and see how guidance then aligns with those thoughts. And if there's a disconnect, then I got to really look in the mirror for myself, or I got to look at models and say, what's going on here? So that's what I'm saying. The general idea, if you combine all the models, it ends up actually being somewhere in between. When was our earliest snow for December? What year? Any year comes to mind? If that came out better, oops. It usually doesn't snow until late summer, early January from Massachusetts, Colson. No, there's been, like, you want to know what the biggest, I mean, there's been plenty of examples of October, November snow for coastal Mass, early December snow as well. It's not really rare, so to say. But it doesn't happen frequently at the same time. So there's been some big ones. I mean, skiers to the north, but you know, a lot of people in like southern New England, PA, Hudson Valley, North Jersey. I mean, Connecticut. I mean, they're gonna love this one too. White Christmas too. Decades we haven't had one. I thought. I mean, a lot of people had one last year. I think. Not maybe not along the coast, but I know there was. There was a nice. We at Christmas we had like a nice 1 to 3 inch event. I think. Looks like the GEFS and the GEFS keep up that gradual south shift. Great job pointing out the last few days using observations. Well, thank you. Don't tell me good job yet until we get the. Maybe you can tell me a good job for highlighting stuff, but don't tell me a good job yet until we until the forecast happens. But guys, you do know what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to forecast. I'm trying to forecast what the models are going to do. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to do at least. That's my goal. Forecast what they're going to do, not reacting to what they're doing. And yeah, holy AI! Did we get an AI Euro AI bomb? Because that looks juicy. Look at that. See the expansion? A little bit more of the jet streaks. Let's take a look at 500 millibars. 500 looks pretty solid. All right. P-type map. What do you got? That looks pretty solid. Let's zoom in here because I want to see that thermal line. $850 line did come. I mean, when you do a little bit more of a northwest shift, you're going to get a 850. Yeah, 850 line did was a little bit more notable of a shift because a little bit more amplified sooner. So that's what you see. But it's good to see the Euro AI starting to line up here with the idea, because as you know. But also I'll say is Euro AI is a lower resolution model. It's gonna smooth out some, so don't be so hyper focused on this. Don't be so hyper focused, because as we know, because as we know, of course, thank you, Twisted. There's things like dynamic cooling that we look at always, and this is a system that will play a factor with that. And then also it smooths it out, so it's not going to be perfect and accurate description always. But let's take a look at the preset here. Yep. I mean, that's got, we're now talking about 0.8 to an inch of precip here along this area. That's going to be nearly all snow as well. Do we dare? This is not going to be accurate, but for the fun of it, there you go. And you notice, right, that 850 line creeped a little bit, but notice that, the snow line didn't come so much more. But again, it's not going to pick up on the coastal front action either. It will not pick up on this stuff. So you got to be careful. And also I'll say with the ensembles, well, I mentioned a little bit, sometimes they do come in a little bit more amped. There is a slight precip bias in some of those. And also, it will also struggle with the snow on the coastal portions as well, the coastal portions. So it will not accurately depict that. It will not. The Euro AI ensembles will not pick that up well. But take a look what we've gone from here. Let's create the GIF. Why not? Why not? Look how much juicier we are. And notice the rain snow line hasn't become so much more farther. Moved what, maybe 20 miles? Juicy J. I swear we always get the best runs to come out on during stream. Well, I try to manifest that. That's a good thing. But take a look. Starting to align with my thoughts. And right, what we said? That there's a lot to suggest here that this is going to be a juicier system than just like a 3 to 6, 4 to 8 ceiling. I'm forecasting more 4 to 8 general area, but I think we could have some swaths here potentially of, six, maybe, maybe like 7 to 12. Maybe some 8 to 12 plus, swaths here, maybe more even. It can't be ruled out. I'm not going to rule it out. But some of those higher totals would probably be a bit more confined to certain areas, not widespread. Your AI more bullish? I think it's just honing in, to be honest, more than anything else. Euro AI, as we tend to get pretty closer, the Euro AI tends to latch on to the general idea pretty good. And it's good to see that it's latching on to this. Because this aligns with my thoughts. This aligns with my thoughts, but much more. Let's do the QPF, because if I tweet a snowfall map out, I will have half a dozen people out, from maybe more. I might have like double-digit comments of people up in arms. Be careful with the snow map. Look at what it's going to do. I don't need to hear all that stuff. It's not worth it. I want to see the mentions of people that actually have questions and good discourse. Aren't we all? Yes, we're all living. Is it Lady Gaga? I'm on the edge of glory. Don't copyright me, YouTube. I know my voice was amazing, but live tweet time before the Euro comes out. No, it's not gonna, mother trucker. All right, how do we save it from here now? There we go. Okay. But is it just gonna save the image, or is it gonna save the GIF? Euro AI preset GIF 1129. Okay, so it does save. Okay. I want to copy and save too, but it's not working. It only copies the image. Recents. Perfect. Actually, I wanted to do a quote tweet of my original. Screw it. All right, let's go take a look at the euro now, people. Actually, this would be interesting. Let's do it out from here. Wide view. See it so much clearly? Look at the axis change. See how more vertical? Straight shot to the fire hose. And this is where the TPV comes into play. Because now it's not going to allow this to go so far west. So now create the fire hose going vertical with the TPV press. You find the middle ground. Get good context in that post. Good enough. Alright, doesn't even look like I'll get a front end thump estimate. Yeah, well, it was very borderline on the front end thump to start with, Ashan. It was very borderline. I did warn you. I did warn you, to be fair. Okay. Yeah, Euro's going to be a little juicier, guys. Euro's going to be a little juicier. A little juicier. Actually, probably still has some convective feedback issues, to be honest. Indeed. It is true. From the Mandalorian, I have spoken. I have spoken. It's crazy how we get the best runs during stream every time. Yeah, I don't know. Let's take a look at the QPF here. Let me play it loud into this.
I have spoken. Hello there, YouTube.
Nope, not that.
I have spoken.
On repeat. All right, let's go to. I better not get copyright. Actually, I shouldn't get copyright for that. All right, let's check you out, QPF. Josie. Josie here. So close, man. A lot of that 1-inch QPF just sitting so close. 12Z was somewhere. God knows where. 06 was God knows where. And there. I don't know why. Why does Weather Bell keep doing this? It's so annoying. It's so annoying. It keeps switching the time frames. I don't know why, and they line up too. That's what's frustrating. But yeah, can create the GIF here too. There's the OZ from last night, and then see just a big circle. You see that? Just a big windshield wiper almost. Not quite, but circle of life. Euro giving southeastern Mass hope. So that's the thing. That's the thing with this system. I'm not ready to rule out this scenario because I think that scenario is more likely, where it's a little bit not quite as amplified, but still juice. It will still have some. It will still be juicy. I'm telling you, even if it's a little bit more southeast. Um, and I will say, this is the least amount that I have seen the eastern wind on the coastal front, which that would be fantastic. If you see compared to OZ, look at the coastal front. And then it pulls off. You see how it's less prevalent here on this run? You see that? I'm keeping an eye on. And that's why guys I haven't been hyping up these areas yet because a lot of people live here and I'm not ready to go in with the coastal front concerns. I'm just not. Just not. Because even if you do stay all snow, guys, it's going to be a pretty wet snow. And I would lean against your ability to see 6+ inches of snow. It shows me getting snow this run. Just toss it. I told you. Your shot here is backside. Your shot into these areas here, northern boroughs, New York City, very, very, very lower Hudson Valley, like more toward the Yonkers, honestly. Into northeast New Jersey is backside. But northeast New Jersey, this corner here, you guys can actually see front end. You guys can actually see front end thump here. And notice here, you just stay all snow actually. But here's what I've noticed. I've told you, look at the precip shield. Your low pressure is all the way down here. And your precip shield's all the way, your shield's all the way back here. But your moderate snow is all the way up to here. So, as a result, there's your snowfall map. Not bad. Compare that to these ones. And why does it keep doing this? Stop it. You're clearly capable. And then OZ was just fa la 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 la. And then there's 12, there's 18. But if you notice, the ensembles really haven't. The ensembles have highlighted all of these different scenarios. The Euro ensembles, I'll be curious to see the Euro ensembles. I think the Euro ensembles have a good shot to look very healthy here. Very, very, very healthy here. They've already looked pretty solid. I think they're going to look pretty healthy here, if I had to guess. Connecticut? Where in Connecticut? Connecticut is not a big state, but it is a big state when you're doing weather. Here versus here versus here will be all different. So this is what I'm saying. Let's say if you were, yes, we do have 22 people watching. I think we've gone up to almost 50 before live. I think we've gotten to almost 50 concurrent live viewers. So let's see if we can pass that. If we get the big one that we all wish for, That's our best chance to really get a pretty explosive live stream. Snow maps don't hold merit, but it's interesting to see the snow in Southeast Connecticut disappear the last 2 Euro runs. That's a great way to phrase it, Kevin. By the way, too, I appreciate you saying it like that as well. And then I'd be remiss not to mention our snowpack to the north here, guys, is very, very solid here to the north and to the northeast. So this is another factor that leads me to suggest that our boundary would support a little bit further south than something you would see on a NAM in some of those GFS runs you saw earlier this morning. Alex, welcome. Central New Jersey, the OZ run shows 7 inches of snow. So you must live in North Central Jersey then, because the Euro for most of Central Jersey does not. Do you live like equally west of the city, or do you live some of these northern areas here? Like, do you live more like Mount Olive towards High Point? You know, so yeah. So all that stuff we've been talking about, guys. If we didn't have much of a Canadian snowpack in here, I think that I would lean a little bit more interior towards like something more GFS like you see right now, and that plays a role. Lower Hudson Valley cooks on this. Indeed, it does. I think Lower Hudson Valley is in a decent spot here. Eastern PA, Reading looking good for snow. Yes, it could be a little bit of a close call, maybe. But I think Reading, regardless, should get some overrunning snow and some front end thump at a minimum in Reading. Again, I have to look a little bit closer into PA. So I'm going to do some more analysis probably tomorrow into because I want to give a better idea for these areas here. But I'm sure there's some people in the Mid-Atlantic. I know some of those Mid-Atlantic outs are going crazy, even though this is like literally the difference between seeing 2 inches and a half inch of snow for some of these areas is, in the grand scheme, not that much. But I'm sure they're going. I'm sure they're going berserk. Some of those Mid-Atlantic Twitter accounts there. You know. I'll be flying to Cali first week of January, so I'll bet on the biggest blizzard you've ever seen that week. I hope so. Sorry, not sorry, Kevin, if it happens. Northern tip of Middlesex County, the GFS and the NAM have been horrible in forecasting this. Well, those are two of the not as good performing models. Take that into account when you consider this. Those are not the better models. And then even then, models play from behind, guys. It's like you know how the sports books, when you look at this stuff, it's always like literally like almost to up to date with what's happening. But then when you look at like ESPN score sheet, or you look at the TV broadcast, you'll see it's more behind than what the sports books are. That's the equivalent for like forecasting off observations versus models. Models play from up behind a little bit more, and the observations are what's happening. That's the best way I can put it. Models are reactionary. As a North Shore Long Islander, snow cutoff at the Connecticut coast is killing me. Well, this is not really your system, so Ryan. So this is one you just gotta wait till later next week instead. Wait your turn here, Ryan. Wait your turn. Long Island will have snow opportunities this December. I'm very confident in that. So here's the thing. Let's play about let's play around this though. The GFS latched on to the idea a little bit earlier on though in some of these models. Remember, some of these had a really weak system, and the GFS was the first to kind of show that more amplified in the medium range. And then it came back southeast, and then went way northwest, and now it's ticking southeast again. So we've just done one singular loop here of models just doing circle of life. We literally showed that in the Euro. Take a look at the Euro. Precip shows it better. Give me my QPF. I wish there was a 36-hour one added as well. I would love that. Circle of life. Is there a Zach in here right now too? I see an Alex 12. Who's a Zach? I don't know that. Or are you just talking about someone else? Damn, you know about Yonkers? Of course I know about Yonkers. And if a thunder snow potential exists with this very heavy bands of snow, I have no idea about thunder snow, guys. Anytime there's heavy snow rates, I guess in theory there's always a chance for thunder snow, but I don't know about thunder snow right now, and that's the least of my concerns. Oh, but that's sad. Okay, I'll try to remember to call you Zach then, Bermani. And if thunder snow potential exists, or no, I read that. William from South Windsor, Connecticut, north of Hartford. What about my area? All snow or no? Over 6 inches, yes or no? From South Windsor. Okay, I know where you're at. In the valley there, or on the edge of the valley, right? If I remember correctly. Actually, whatever. I know your general area. Um, I would lean towards mostly snow at least. You want Bermani? Okay. Um, well, whatever you prefer. Yeah, I would say I would say that I think you're in a decent. I don't think you're. I would favor you for a jackpot really, but I think you have a good shot to stay at least like a good amount of snow for the event. At least some front end thump at a minimum. I think, and some backside snow potential as well if it were that scenario. But I think you have a good shot to stay at least like 70% snow at least in this event. But I don't think it's quite like that. I think you have a better chance of staying all snow, or like 85. Like I think you have a better shot to stay like 85, 90% to 100% all like snow, versus being like like 60-40 for example. In that case, I think you would either just front end thump and backside. But I think over the next couple days here, which isn't unexpected, I think we will start getting a pretty good idea of where exactly that quarter will be. I think it will start to become a bit clearer, which I know was obvious, but sometimes it's not. I don't want to bring up PTSD, but February 13th, 2024. New Haven, Connecticut. Close. Really close with this system. It could be really close. Anytime I say February 13th, 2024, February 13th, 2024. Anytime I say that. Oh, wait, hold up. Now my volume's up. There we go. Adjusted. But I do think you have some front end thump potential. But really along the coast, it's going to be tough. If you're like on like just north of New Haven, that's better. I was not paying attention. That sound effect just throw you off completely. Let's check out the ensembles. So remember, these things can tend to be juiced, but these things are juiced again. They're on roids, guys. Mark McGuire. What I do love is, look at that consistency. That's insane consistency right there. I love to see that. This is the ensemble mean, guys. The mean. And it looks like it's slightly, well, it's including the next week system as well. Will it give me a 24-hour? I'm just excited because Euro's showing good potential, not far out. That's fine. Just don't, and that's not a bad thing. It's really not a bad thing. If you just want to enjoy the ride a little bit in models, that's not a bad thing. But if you do want to know the end result, just know that models will not be your best tool for that. Just know that. They're a tool that can be used to line up with some stuff. But yeah, guys, this is pretty impressive. Looks like we didn't shift this further northwest, and we juiced it up even more. But there tends to be a little bit of a bias. It's a little, like, in reality, I think they would be a little bit. Actually, I don't know what I'm going to say there. I don't want to say it unless I have complete confidence. But I would knock this down about 10 to 15%. Some of these numbers here. So where you see like 1.1, I would say more like 1. 1.3, more like 1.15, 1.2. So I would take off about 1/10 of an inch on some of these stuff. Maybe even 2/10 potentially. But regardless, that's a really good spot. Any updates for North? Same idea. I don't think I was just saying before. I think over the next 24 to 36 hours, I think we'll get a clearer idea. I think tomorrow night into Monday, we'll get a much clearer idea into some of that stuff. Do you think dynamic cooling will be huge factors that models don't show? Absolutely. Well, not show, just won't be able to pinpoint as well at certain times. But depends on from what angle. If it's more of whether you're northwest or southeast, then that's a much different whether you're snow or all snow. But the initial surge north from the warm air advection, that's a little bit different because if you're closer to the coast, then at some point probably flips as it advances. So it goes here, here, and here. For example, if we were doing it in theory. Storm duration and timing. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, I think briefly, but we can True, that seems how it's been for us. I would say though, keep an eye though. Coastal, I'm telling you guys, coastal areas towards the end of next week after this storm here. What do we always talk about, guys? The beginning and end of patterns. This is the beginning of our new pattern change, right? We're in this pattern progression, and here's the beginning of our new pattern, and we're tracking a snowstorm. Always look at the beginning and ends of patterns. I'm using those Bernie Sanders hands. Don't get all political here. You just, when he starts talking, when he starts talking with the hand, that's all I want. Don't get mad or happy. What I don't get. Don't, please don't. It's not. Please don't. But with the hands, that's what I'm going like right now. Beginning and end of pattern changes. When does the Euro come out? Euro already came out. I think you mean ensembles. But we'll look at them after. I want to see here. Yeah. You see how it's not like necessarily. This isn't further west as well, like so much, but this is further north, and this is stronger. The best way to maximize this guy or gal, what I want to say is this guys. Late explosive amplification, and honestly, it's what I'm leaning towards and what's favored. And it's not. It's just because of the setup itself. It is not because it's what makes most people happy. If that was the case, I would be one of the worst forecasters in the frickin' history of this. This supports late amplification, which gets me intrigued. What are the top analog ears? We can try to look at the KIPS, SIPs, whatever. Analogs. Yeah, I'd love to see the chat flowing. Ratio. I was on Fortnite. I have not shown Euro ensembles yet. So we want to see this explode north late, just in time for these areas on here to get strong pocket of lift and ascent, and allow those dynamics to consolidate near and along that boundary. Because what that does is allows all that QPF to get pulled right into here then and slide out. The more you can amplify that without it being too early. So that's why when I'm said, guys, when we're pretty much maximizing this storm, that's what I mean. Doesn't mean it's all good. Doesn't mean that. It just means that's where my head's at now. Oh, that's 18. Hey now. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy. I know it's probably off by about 10 to 15%, maybe 20. So depends on the setup. Sometimes there's a bias, but then even then, as you can find more, if this is more if it is a higher end solution, then what it shows now could be what it is. So use caution when you're looking at these, but boy, oh boy. These percentiles out. That's the 25. That's even you take off an inch off all these. That's the 20. That's the 20. That means 75% chance of it being at least this is kind of one way you can view it. Or Lena, I don't remember. It was sorry, I don't. I used to know the follow the storm names when I was a lot younger, but I'm assuming is that I think that's the February 1st, 2021 one you're talking about. It's the 75th percentile. So that means that this is the top 25% of model runs right here. Here's the top 10% of model runs of an average mean. This is the new AIFS, yes. And again, just know cut these down just a little bit in the mean. Probably like about 10-15%. Just to be, you don't want to like over, but like just a little bit to use caution. So this does not mean, and also guys, it's going to not be right at the coast. It's going to overdo the coastlines. This will not accurately depict the rain snow line stuff well. Just won't not. So I would use caution. But it is the highest scoring ensemble as well, in general, especially 500 millibars. So use caution when looking at these. But that's impressive. Just lets you know some of this. Just really all this does is it lets you know some of the potential with this system, and it's consistently highlighting that as well. Consistently. Skips a lot of frames here. But the average mean slowly creeping a little bit more with that rain snow line. But this is a little detail, so you don't really need to, unless we really like to keep seeing this for like through into Monday. If we were to keep seeing this, then I'd be like, But this is the average mean 850 line of all these numbers, and this is the average mean. So this is not the specific scenario playing out. It's just averaging it out, all those. In reality, what ends up happening will probably be closer to one specific scenario, not a mean. So this is why I don't really like specifically, but it does give you an idea. See if I can get a refresh. $72? Nope. Can I show it again? Sure. There you go. Saw a good post today by Tomer for the reason for not using AIFS ensemble snow totals. Yeah, I mean, I just talked about it. It's really, I just specifically addressed that along the coast, it's not going to be too valuable to obsess over these. Like these are not accurate whatsoever. I said make sure you take that with a grain of salt. And then also has a little bit of a high preset bias. So take off, maybe 10 to 15 plus % of some of these totals you see here. So you got to be careful looking at some of these. What did you do? I don't know what you did. I'm not sure what you're referencing. I better see school getting canceled. Um, mm, Sorry, but I don't make the rules. Okay. I doubt these panels are anywhere close to out yet. No. And then I will check some of those analogs. That's pretty solid, guys. It's pretty solid. See, we get QPF. Guys, that's really good. It's about the same as 18Z, but it's pretty good. It's good consistency to see right there. Actually, wait, I gotta get it's not gonna. Yeah, that included that included this storm as well. That's not accurate. Don't. That's from. I need to double check it. So it's not quite out yet. Not ready yet. That's my bad. Let's look at some of these analogs. It's this website. GEFS analogs. I think it's this website. Yes. This is also the GF. This is through the GFS as well. So take that with a grain of salt. But there's your median snowfall right there. Using the GFS. There you go. There wasn't gonna be any takeaway. But I'm not sure if anyone was expecting a takeaway, but just showing it. Okay. Is it possible to snow with 850 temps above zero? No, you can't snow anywhere above the column unless you're like really close. Then dynamic cooling can take over. Ay ay ay. Give me these panels. Come on. Is that Family Guy? Come on.
Come on. Don't.
I don't want to play the last part because some people would. That's what I feel right now. Come on. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Let's go to. Well, let's check out the rest of that Euro AI run. Because why not? So I know we had some questions about next week's system. Feels like that good point. We're in between the slow as heck models that come out. Euro AI looks gorgeous, and then that looks pretty interesting. Let's see. That looks pretty interesting. Yeah. Euro AI seems to be locked in on this idea, on this general idea. You see this? Look at the consistency. It's there. This is a chance for coastal areas too to get into it. This one would be more of a strictly more rain snow line if I had to guess at this point. Be a little bit less concerned. Would be a bit colder in general out ahead of the system. Take a look how cold we're gonna be, guys. Freaking frigid. Icebox ahead of this. 850s in central northern New England, minus 20 degrees Thursday night. Minus 20 to minus 25. Direct strike from the polar vortex. Surface temps potentially below zero up in northern New England. And there's your gradient then already being set. You see that along the boundary? I'm guessing the Euro AI is probably smoothing this out a little bit along the boundary as well, if I had to guess. So probably if you do mix, there's more sleet concern than snow here. Let's see. More fun. It's like a longer duration event too. But more fun in the forecast it looks. Could build some guys. We could build the early seasonal totals pretty nice here and snowpack. Building snowpack never hurts, especially for areas further south too. Keep an eye on that. See that? Explodes just a little bit too late. Just a bit too late. Just a bit outside. And beyond that is model noise, but at least for the next 10 to 12 days, I think we're going to continue it. But we'll see. We did look at the zero OZ Euro already, unless you're talking about for here. Oh yeah, C250. Yep. Looks interesting. That's a strong jet streak too, man. Oh, Euro just offshore here too. Well, oh, that's way out. What am I doing? How much do I pay for weather boat? I don't know. At least it's got to be at least. It's not for me. I don't get a specific price personally, but I think it's like 30 per month or something like that. I don't know. You see that? Actually, it doesn't. It actually pretty much almost hits this thing. So, but it does take a little bit more delay to amplification there. Euro, yeah, that's just the noise. 500 millibar. See 500 millibar consolidate north there. That's all that is. I'd be looking more here on this system versus here. I wouldn't worry about model noise like that. But we don't skip steps either. This is the system right now, and I'm telling you. And I'm also will say, look at the euro here. Yeah, I don't think you realize that screams the southwest flow events. You always have convective feedback issue. That's why you see that northwest trend on a lot of southwest flow events. So it would also it's what leads me skeptical on some of those more southern totals, like somewhere like southern Connecticut, southern Rhode Island, southeastern Massachusetts. It's what leads me a little bit skeptical, is because it really would not take a lot here to consolidate much more. You see this? It would not take a lot more to consolidate this here at 700 a little bit sooner, and even then it already does. But it's so close to doing this here at 700. So close. So very freaking close here, guys, to really wrapping this in a bit more. And that's why New England has the highest ceiling. East New York into New England. And in theory, some of these high Poconos elevation. So, convective feedback, a lot of times, the model that blotchiness times you see, it can kind of take off with certain areas of the convection. You see it with really all models, all kinds of the resolution. But you see it a lot. GFS is really bad with this stuff, especially in the tropic season. And basically, that's why something, honestly, the Euro AI would maybe be more beneficial for these scenarios at times. But the Euro AI smooths out different ways as well. Typically, when you look at the 500 millibar vort here, I look at this, I'm looking at the area of consolidation point to be somewhere in around here, your 500 millibar low. That's where I would be looking at. If you look at the general idea of the surface low, you see that it's way too far south here. See how the surface low is? The surface low is like 400 or 500 miles south at least. Typically, I'd be looking for the surface low to be a little bit more here. Really though, the surface low is pretty much more this whole area here, guys. That's really the surface low. And so it latches on here to the south instead of consolidating the dynamics north a little bit more efficiently. And that's what prevents that QPF from being able to get thrown in here more. Like, really, I think there should have been more QPF on this solution. It could have been even more, honestly. And again, yes, it is. It's a southwest flow event. It's a progressive system. But the story's in the 250 jet again, too, remember. Let me take a look here. Some pretty explosive development there in a quick amount of time. Right there, it's that period. That northern lift, figuratively and literally. Where you create that fire hose to get shot up here. So it's kind of like this versus just straight back. Kind of gets brought up and out. It gets carried. Gets brought up, brought into it, and carried out. But that area of consolidation, probably gets messed up a little bit more. So they probably, mess with it. Do you think we could see a large increase in QPF without the rain snow line moving further north? That's the big question. That's a big question. I wouldn't say a large amount. But yes, you can. In this setup, you can. And I honestly think we already kind of are maximizing it, guys. To be honest, we're nearly doing that. But no, you're not just going to see some 20 to 30 inch quarter of snowfall all of a sudden with this. Not that you were saying that, but just to give you an idea. no no blocking in positive NAO, negative PNA, and you expect them to leave snowstorm. Sorry, not falling for it this time. It's way lit. It's that's a really black and white way to look at things, and I just don't. I just that's not how I view things. It's a really black and white way to do it. Positive NAO also some of like January 25th, 2015 was one of our biggest snowstorms. The idea that you cannot get snowstorms with a positive NAO, I don't know what this conception is. It is factually false. It is just not even close to true. Just not even close. So not to like sound disrespectful, but it's not about sorry falling for it. It's about looking at what the setup is. So you can say that, I guess, but I don't know where you live specifically. Maybe you're just talking about your hometown, and I don't know where that is. But I don't know. I completely disagree with that sentiment. With that idea. Um, so yeah, so I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe this does end up being some very flattened out version, but there's really not much to support it at this time. Really not much. Or unless you think this is like extremely more interior, way interior, and I would also say there's not a lot to support that this time either. Like I don't know, I'm not sure what makes you think that. Either way, being so far interior or far flat. Maybe you're not even in the stream anymore, but I do not agree with that whatsoever. Just my opinion. For all the reasons we've discussed prior. But I really don't love when people generalize stuff like that with teleconnections. I think it's a very surface level way to look at things, in my opinion. And there's it's every setup is different. Like people are like, you look at this and you go, it's a positive NAO. Why is that positive NAO? Because you have a freaking TPV right here from your. This is your polar vortex pressing on the system right here. That's why you have a positive NAO. We're going to be in a positive NAO for the next like 3 weeks, with constant waves coming over and up on from the Pacific here. And also, like, this is a massive. This is also not a negative. This is not a negative PNA either. It's maybe neutral, near neutral, maybe. It's a very prevalent negative EPO as well. So I don't know where, but I don't think that's great analysis right there. Not to sound disrespectful, but just, yeah. But I'm not even sure if you're still in here, so it's not really worth spending that much time more on. Okay, let's check the ensembles. Go to. I think we already looked at this. There we go. Yeah. I like it. See the preset now. surface. $24 hours. It's pretty solid. We actually shifted this a little bit further southeast, but notice that what we did. Let's go to the east, and I'll show you here, because 250 tells a little bit of a different story, in my opinion. Slightly, not all that different, but you see this? You see the juice up here more? Remember we talked about that. 250, more juice allows for a fire hose here. So you don't see much of a difference. Maybe it's just because there's more of a spread within some of the precip here and some of these members. So we'll take a look at the panels to get a little bit better idea. But remember, you always see, that's what people go to the northeast and they just check, oh, went southeast, oh, went northwest. Oh, there's more, there's less. There's always more to that, more nuance when you're doing model analysis. And you'll notice that. You see it converge tighter. I like seeing that. So that's your moisture feed. Again, I'm not basing my forecast off this. If we're doing the model analysis, let's do it well, let's do it right. See if we got any panels yet. Well, I guess we can check it, see if this. I usually like looking at the panels first, but it's fine. Looks pretty similar. Very similar. But I really want. We'll tell it better. Yeah. Looks like I just confined it a little bit more, to be honest here. That's what I'm about to check, Hidden Mega. That's what I'm about to check here. Let's see. Yep. Oh, there's some juiced up ones, guys. There's some juice ones. Ooh, there are some juices. And I think that's what you see there on the 250. Some of these. It's really, not that there weren't some before already, but there's a lot of good floor scenarios here too. But you see how it's moving fast, 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 and these slow down briefly? That's that period of amplification I'm talking about on the upper level jet. That's what I'm talking about. You see it? Fast, fast, and then slows down, especially those bigger runs, how they slow. But even on the moderate ones too. And that's why New England has that ceiling. Just like the higher ones will skew it sometimes, the lower ones will too. Here's one of your flattest scenarios. And even then, you still get a few inches of snow. Take a look, 26 through 50. Some pretty good runs there too. You notice what I'm not seeing too is a lot of full-on interior solutions. Which it would be it would be a real, it would not a failure, but it would be. And then you see also this guy showing like a coating to an inch here for this whole area. It would be a miss. I wouldn't say it'd be a complete failure, but it would not be a miss. I mean, I'm going to try to go at the same pace here. Notice, especially the big ones, how they slow down more. And I'm telling you, there's a period here for amplification. Yeah, 26 through 50, there's less like medium to high memory, but there's still a lot of solid hits here. You have a little bit more interior hits here as well. And I could be reading it wrong, but you still have a decent spread. You have some spread, but the general, like the 25 to 75th percentile is more consistent. It's really more that 10 and 90th percentile where there's some spread, I would say. So let's look at that. I think that will paint a better picture. See that? That's your like more floor from the euro, and that's your extreme floor. You see, those are the more extreme ones. Here's your like your more realistic floor from the euro ensembles themselves. Your 50th. There's your middle ground, and there's your higher ground, but closer to the medium, right? That medium to high ground, kind of. Um, so that's kind of like a realistic ceiling from the Euro's depiction. And then there's your top 10% right there, which just is more confined. That's really it, which we want to see. The models, like the Euros versus the world, the Euro is the only one that wants me to have a lot of snow. I didn't understand your point there. The models like is like Euro versus the world. The Euro's okay. You're saying it's the Euro versus Euro. You're saying it's Euro I versus everyone else. Models are just going to model. Well, I hate to break it to you, but every model is wrong right now. The question is how wrong. So, whatever you see now on models will not happen. Because every model is going to be wrong. The question is how wrong. That's what we have to ask ourselves every time. There's your next period then. Late next week. Getting real philosophical. I love it. A good vocab choice right there, too. Something I would use. Don't. You guys remember when everybody was saying the first week of December was going to be a torch? Yep. How'd that go? Just about as well as a bear trying to hibernate in the summer. So much for that torch. And if you were following along and you weren't just blindly following the models, you would know that that was likely never going to happen. ready for the Big Ten championship. So my college football team is Oregon. I don't go to college. I did not go to college there, um, but my team is Oregon, and so I'm kind of happy they're not in the Big Ten championship because now their ranking is not going to get penalized as a result, and can only go up from there. So I'm an Oregon college football fan. I'm a Duke college basketball fan. It's all family related too, so I'm not just a. Don't worry, I'm not a bandwagon, and that never would be, because I'm all New England sports for a professional. So a lot of heartbreak late in the season with Oregon. Yeah, you don't tweet. You don't. Yeah, slow down there, Twitter fingers. You don't be saying anything for about 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, you put my lines in quotes. Man, though, I really loved the displacement here, especially with the how amplified. Our Pacific is downstream with the here because here's the pattern here, guys. Polar vortex displacement of cold air across Canada from northwest to southeast. That northwest southeast flow there for systems, for stuff to come around the TPV lobe. Penn State. Oregon has annihilated Penn State every single time over the past 3 years. Oregon literally ended the James Franklin era at Penn State. Oregon literally ended it. Yeah, you realize that, Twisted? Ended it. I actually think James Franklin's a good coach, but who's going to be better out there for that program? See all those recruits go to him too. So much. I respected the Bama Saban era, to be honest. I really like Saban as a coach. His a lot of stuff he says really successful. But I don't really hate Bama as much as other people do. Not that I love him. But here's the idea: is that northwest to southeast flow, active subtropical jet here, with waves coming in over the Pacific. Boundary just keeps getting set further and further south to allow places further south to get in. And that does not mean it limits places in the Northeast. No, thank you, Hidden Mega, for tuning in. I bet most people were Brahmani. Saban is a goat. Yes, Saban is. So that's kind of the idea here coming up, is you see that continuously too, that general idea. Now the specifics of where the cold gets displaced exactly, models will always struggle on that, and the depth of it as well, if I had to guess. And if we're lucky, we can get, right, we keep knocking at the door here with snowstorm setups, maybe not massive ones, but snowstorm setups. Let's keep knocking at the door till we knock the door down, open up a window of opportunity, see if we can line up all those pieces to get a pretty massive snowstorm. Like a legit blockbuster, the blizzard, the big one that you guys obsess about always. That, listen, I want too. I want one of those, but I don't constantly look for it. I'm just seeing what's out there. Take what you can get. Saban is prime Belichick of college. I would have to agree. See that same idea here from the Euro AI? That northwest to southeast flow of the cold air displacement works in our favor. And you know what it probably suggests is this orientation, guys, is the Mid-Atlantic is probably going to get at least a, even if it were to ride up the coast, let's say, even if it were to ride up the coast and go into the Northeast as well, if it were amplified enough, I would say there's probably going to be at least in one Mid-Atlantic opportunity in here, if I had to guess, over the next couple 2 to 3 weeks or so. Like one legit Mid-Atlantic snowstorm for your standards. Does the deep cold prior on Thursday affect the storm Saturday that tries to drive in warm air? Yes, I did. I did discuss a little bit, but you have really good cold air in place out ahead, and we'll have more snowpack in place from everything, so that really helps to set the boundary a little bit further south as well. But also the displacement of cold air itself also forces the boundary initially a little bit further south, so that any warm air surge is going to be above the surface likely, and that would be more of a sleet ice concern rather than a snow/rain concern. So if you're below zero throughout the column, you're going to snow and not have to worry about rain at the bottom likely with that setup, and maybe beyond as well. We'll see. And then I say Mid-Atlantic. I just don't know if we will be able to displace the cold far enough south for a southeast setup here. I don't know. I'm just not confident quite yet. Again, it doesn't rule out maybe for something to ride up the coast, but you would really have to line up some pieces. So it would probably be a more progressive system. One or two of these at some point. That's unless we have enough Atlantic or southeast bridging in place. Then that really prevents. So that's the key here. See if we still have that southeast bridge in place, at least minimally. That actually can work in our favor. Y'all are lighting me up. I'm trying to keep up here. I'd rather have that than 2 people in here and no comments. So I appreciate it. This will be my first time ever that I see snow on my birthday. Please happen, bruh. Crying face emoji. Sorry. Court denied it. Not buying next weekend's threat until the Spire shows it. I agree. Spire be the end-all, be-all solution. Maybe a Mitch West special. Court denies Mitch as well for the short term, unfortunately. Question here, depending on where the rain snow line forms when the system starts forming in Kentucky Valley, would that give us a clue for it being against New England? Yeah, at that point though, we would kind of already have probably a pretty good idea. But I guess if you're asking in near term now, it would be less about specifically the rain snow line. It would be more about the rain snow line correlates here, but more about the thermal boundary that sets up above the surface. Meaning, if we look at above the surface here, like we look at 850, for example, it would be more about the boundary that sets up here than at the surface itself. And seeing, like we talked about earlier, I'm assuming you're talking about next Tuesday, Wednesday system, then if we're watching how much energy at 500 millibars, tries to consolidate there early on as well. But again, let's go back to current observations. Let's leave the godforsaken models for a second. And let's go back. This is where I'm looking at here. Actually, I want to go to upper. And we'll keep it here. Here's your subtropical jet. This is what's going to help supply the moisture here, guys. It's what's going to keep, it's what keeps me leading the supply of moisture from the subtropical jet. That's pretty juiced. Leads me, maybe higher than some people, but I don't view it as higher. Some people, I just view it as in my forecast. I try not to view it like that. And you can already see the setup path right here. Follow the goalposts. And this is where your system is going to, it's where your system here over this Pacific ridge here dives in. And along that boundary there, TPV presses down here. This is what here, and it's what leads me to believe here, with this being so prevalent, that it's gonna want to help pop the surface low, and also this being system so positively tilted, and the TPV pressing, too much going on, and the TPV pressing, with this being so positively tilted. Look at how positively tilted, guys, the orientation is. And it's not going to change quite yet, even though it's so amplified. The flow, not ridiculous, not as much as like this, but it's rather amplified, the flow. It's what leads me to believe eventually this is what will take us going here. We're going to want to form the surface a little bit further southeast versus trying to amplify more further north and take off. Now maybe there's a middle ground more, and that's where one of your more interior solutions takes off. But where I would lean is a little bit more towards here in the middle ground to account for that. So that I'm not really buying like something more here would be a little bit more full Euro-like, for example. And in that middle ground is probably a little bit more Euro AI-like. And so I would expect surface low probably to be a little bit more dominant than something you see like a GFS or Canadian. And this is what drives the show here. And this is that funnel of moisture that will get pulled into the flow. You'll watch it. Watch it over the next couple days. We'll make it's trust but verify, so let's see it. But you can already see it get pulled in. You see it? This is your system. It's already getting pulled into the flow out ahead here. And it's juiced up, guys. It's very juiced. You can probably connect this in part to being in the current NGO phase as we are. I'm sure that's not hurting us. But the return of the subtropical jet here is the key. What aspects on radar? For right now, I think we're a bit too far for that. Really, what you're gonna want to see is to make sure it's not too suppressed. We want to make sure initially, once we're later, we have a good precip shield. And then, I know this is a little small. Yeah, but let's just do, yeah, but I want more zoomed in. Is that we have a good precip shield. And now we're also not so heavy with the precipitation out here early on as well. Not that it won't be decent regardless, but you don't see your best dynamics starting to get going here. You don't see like a NAM-like deformation band happening out here. Basically late explosiveness along the coast and just inland is what we're going to want to see on radar. It's going to be one where we're going to want to be looking probably eastern PA to Long Island for that heavy banding to get going. That's probably what we're going to want to be looking at for. So with your errors, Drew, for the L pressure, looks like that track should give snow because the GFS has a low going rate over me. Yeah, I don't quite buy into that as much as some others do. Originally, I thought it had a little bit more merit, but right now, not quite. But again, the temperatures are still a little bit marginal along the coast for the coastal front factors we discussed. So that doesn't mean it's a all-out snowstorm for everybody still along the coast. So that's the tricky part with this one, because it is this is one where Climo is going to play a factor here, it being December 2nd and 3rd. But there's the big picture here. See it? Look at this getting pulled into the flow here. This is your system. It's getting pulled in. Out ahead too. You can see it. So what's going to happen here, since this is so positively tilted here, and you can kind of see it, this will we'll probably see some sort of connection here to this, to the edge of this here, along this boundary here. This is still this cycle. Look at this freaking beast here in the North Atlantic by Greenland. Absolute tank of a system. To the occlusion there of the low. Pretty cool to see unfold. And as this system, you see this thing's racing, freaking lifting fast to the north here. And the edge of this system, you'll probably start to see this moisture get out ahead here over the next couple days of this system. Start seeing that happen. And this will continue to funnel juice in our moisture for this here. And then as this train tracks are being set, guys, you can already see it. This is where it's going to go. And as the system as a whole moves through here, along the subtropical jet here, that's where that surface low just off to the southeast. Oh, he laid another one. Man, he's been farting left and right this screen. And they smell too. That one was one of the worst smelling ones I've ever smelled before. Jeez. Oof. It's one of those you can taste it. Ugh. Not good. No bueno. And there's just a lot going on here. There's a lot going on here initially to allow the early amplification. So good news is we can kind of rule out a cutter. Not officially, but unofficially, officially. It is good. Inland runner, extremely unlikely. Inland solution, unlikely, but not impossible. I wouldn't say it's not most likely. Not impossible, based on what we have so far. Given enough Atlantic ridging here, what we have going on, probably doesn't support a storm track getting suppressed offshore here. Probably follows something along here initially, right? And in that middle ground. And then also keep in mind, we looked at sea surface temperatures too. It's probably a system where the low pressure is going to want to ride the boundary. It's going to want to ride that. So we'll slide to pray Tidbits doesn't crash it again. It's been pretty good with this one though. Storms love to ride the boundary. And there it is. So that would lean a little bit more away when you have this pushing here from your cold pack. You have your TPV to the north, and you have your snowpack as well, which has a little bit of an influence, minor, albeit, but influence. Likely more prevents an interior track, far interior, sets up that boundary a little bit further south. It allows a low pressure probably to do this contract. Expect that somewhere in there. I had to take a shot. And you can see the Gulf Stream flow though. That's how it will work here. Some really warm sea surface temperatures in the Gulf. That's another thing to account for, guys. Look how above average we are. These departures here in the Gulf. That's not going to work. You guys, it's a little hard to see. Look how above average we are in the Gulf, guys. We are steaming frickin' in the Gulf right now. I mean, that's got to be what, 2 to 3 degrees at least Celsius above average, and along the Gulf Stream too. But see, we're below average here. A lot of spots here. Which is a good thing for a few weeks from now. November, December though, or late November, early December, it makes it a little bit more tricky. But this is probably a good sign for QPF, with something models will probably struggle to account for. Like we're still some of these waters here, guys, in the Gulf could still support a major hurricane. Take a look. Friggin' 27 to 29 degrees Celsius, 27, 28 degrees Celsius there in the Gulf. Like this right here, this eddy could probably support a major hurricane. And I've seen freaking Zeta 2020 go into 23 degrees sea surface temperatures and be a major hurricane. So, given that was jet enhanced, that's very circumstantial though. You got the Gulf Stream a bit above average. You have the Gulf a bit above average. That's going to help enhance the subtropical jet. And what happens when it's so positively tilted for so long is it gets sheared out. Almost said shit out. It gets sheared out ahead. It gets pushed out in front of the flow. And then once it's ready for development, that's when it brings it north. So it just happens. I'm not trying to just say stuff here to make, blow smoke up your guys' butts to make you happy. As much as a people pleaser I am, I care more about being right in this instance than making you guys happy with the forecast. And I'm just trying to look at as many different variables I can to account for and see what they support. And there's a lot of different variables here with this setup that support why I think what I think. Oh, if I didn't mention it too, I haven't please hit the like, helps a lot. If you want the only best way you can support me, please hit the like if you're in the YouTube chat. Continue help trying to get this YouTube off the ground floor here. Stuff on YouTube, I'm such a niche thing. I'm not, doing the whole U.S. I'm doing more so the East Coast. Not for hurricanes, but for winter weather. And then I have some Midwest people too, and some some people out there. But So I was thinking I have some Texas people too, and Oklahoma, but it's mainly that. So if you don't mind hitting the like, it does help a lot because I think we have something here, guys. I think we have a good niche of what we do here that's not really tapped into much on YouTube that you don't see. People that want that deep, deep dive of analysis. I think there's something there. You don't see a ton of it to this extent. So that's the hope. But we're just going to keep doing our thing regardless. Look how warm these temperatures are in the East Pack, though, guys. Look at that. 30 freaking degrees here along the coast of Mexico. 27 to 29 degrees here along the Caribbean. I mean, there's these. If we do get enough, there could still be a hurricane here, guys. It wouldn't be impossible if you get the right upper level steering pattern. So that makes sense. GFS is consistently have the low like over the Cape wall. And again, yeah, it's a possible scenario. I don't want to dismiss it. Not that specific, but some variation of that idea is not impossible. So I don't want to rule that out because it's not. It's not off the table yet. You got to hone in on what becomes more and more likely as we get closer. You can kind of see it there. These East Pack waters are off the charts. Not literally, figuratively. And some of these temps here along the Gulf, I mean, these are really high above these sea surface departures in Celsius. I mean, they got to be what? Some of these like 2 to 4 degrees, almost 2 to 3 degrees. And then you look at the Atlantic as a whole, just overwhelmingly above average as well. Overwhelmingly. Yeah, I'm not necessarily not falling asleep either, so I'm trying to stay awake here. I'm getting kind of captivated in the analysis right now, so I'm kind of enjoying it. Not kind of, am. It's amazing how much of the Atlantic though still has. We're almost December 1st, end of hurricane season, could still support a hurricane or a major hurricane. That's really impressive. Look at some of the ensembles here again, and I didn't even look at I didn't even look at the Canadian, to be honest. So I think the RGM is the same thing as the Canadian though. So yeah, it's almost pretty solid. Probably a little bit more interior, but it's not a bad idea. I like it. I like it as a range. Gives context. But it still shows you, even if you do this, you get probably some front end thump for a lot of these areas still. But just one thing is I don't agree with that all that ice that would be happening. I don't think it would be that much. To sleep schedules and winter storm tracking don't mix. They just don't at all. They do not mix whatsoever. And then here's your higher res version of this. Maybe. There's your higher res version of that. provide some context. I think it's a good, shows you that more interior scenario, which isn't a bad idea. And it would still probably make a decent amount of people happy. That's why the interior has more margin for error. These places here have more margin for error. It's always been the case. The interior has more margin for error. Let me check some of these ensembles here. That's not what I wanted. Ready? A lot of them show a lot, just barely offshore too. A lot of these, like really juiced up just offshore. I wonder what to make of that. Yep, but that's a lot of spread. And there's some consistency there. Well, maybe not as much spread as I thought, but still a good amount of spread there. But the idea is there. The idea is there. See how it's not limited as much to the coastal here? Or it's not limited as much to the interior here too? Let's see what it's got. It's actually not bad. That's a little bit more impressive than I gave it credit for. Wonder if it's combining any setups though during that time. It's not a bad signal there though. Euros on it too, just a little bit more. It's focused a little bit more on the interior for some reason with this. I don't really agree with that, but Euro ensemble in this range is also not quite as reliable as the AIFS. Not that the AIFS is a golden standard by any means. I don't know, I would lean just given how amplified that guy is going to be coming into the Pacific. I would lean away from it being a more minor system. I would say it has a better chance of at least being a moderate one, just based on that what we've been looking at. But we'll have to look at it as we get closer. But boy, oh boy, do we lay down the cold out ahead of that system. Boy, oh boy, do we do it. And that's the key. Track thermal gradients. Watch along the boundaries here. Track thermal gradients. See that? We pull that thermal gradient in. Snowstorm number 1. Set the cold even more now. Snowstorm number 2. And then it gets so smoothed out there that it's hard to say. But that's what you look for. Look along and look along. Some of the best things you can do, guys, is just get in the models. Don't look at anything else. Look at it. Go to 850 or even the surface, and you just do this. And you look along, and you see where are those greatest thermal gradients. Where does that warm air get pulled? Look, follow the warm air. Where does it get pulled in? What's the cold air look like? You'll see that. There's storm. Not as strong. You see how it doesn't. See how it's more flatter along the front, kind of almost. And it takes a little bit more time to eventually get pulled in there along the North Atlantic. And even then, doesn't fully do, or at least fantastically. And then there's the next period. And then there's then maybe a little something there. Clipper, maybe? Maybe. But really, boom. There's the next one. Live with Gerald tomorrow. Did he tweet it out? How did you? Oh, did you? Or did you just hear me say no? Yes, I may be going live with him tomorrow. So yeah, let's see. I heard him say it in his video. Okay, so you were watching it. Yeah. But I will still be I will still likely be doing it, even if it's shorter, because I will have to get up earlier on Monday at least. Then yeah. So again, hit the like if you don't mind. But in the meantime, we got a snowstorm. We got a snowstorm to track here, people. We got a snowstorm to track here. Contrary to some others' beliefs, we do have a snowstorm to track. So I appreciate you all tuning in. If you don't mind hitting the like on your way out, if you're on YouTube, that's greatly appreciated. If you're next, thank you for tuning in. Listen to what I have to say. It means a lot. I don't take that for granted. If you got questions, put them in the comments, put them in whatever. And we'll see maybe